Hi, this is Lana Campbell from You Have a Life Plan and Support Their Light, a service for parents with sensitive kids. And I just wanted to go over an old presentation that I did in 2017, which I've edited because since then I've gained more information. And also, like having now gone through COVID with my husband, looking at these old slides about our human design side by side and soul contract side by side, it makes sense that we struggled so much and had so much pain between us. And I'm also adding to an article which I wrote for an upcoming event tomorrow. And I realized that the reason why I was starting with such a complex concept in that other article was because something in me was telling me to go back to basics. Yes, I've learned so much since 2017, and I now do esoteric medicine, which works on different parts of the brain and integrating stuff that gets stuck because of trauma and conflict, but also human design and soul contract is still there for me. And sometimes that provides a lot of answers that are really useful. There's a reason why I brought that online before. And now that my youngest is about to turn 4, I think this is a really appropriate time because she is going out to meet the world. And so understanding her design and how people impact her, I kind of forgot that that would be important to look at again. So I'm doing that again here. And then also sharing that, like we've had significant gains in our family over the past couple of weeks, and that is in part due to taking my family to see Master Yan. So I'm going to share that with you. And then finally, also, like I'm reading all these books about parenting, which I have been for the past 11 years. And it's great to have this advice, but you don't always have the level of consciousness with the researchers. So let me say that in another way. These researchers can provide amazing insight on how the brain develops and how the brain works and how we integrate the brain and what happens in trauma and all this stuff, and how do we help kids who are showing selective mutism in school, how do we get them to return to school and all this stuff. But a lot of them come from the perspective of the parent's job is to teach them manners, the school's job is to teach children how to learn and all this stuff. And we're forgetting that these people, even though their brains are developing, are they have the same feelings and needs as all of us. So if we could, instead of making it like it is the parent's job to make sure that you teach them these manners and it is the parent's job to make sure that you show them consequences and stuff like that, if instead we could just be more curious as to what need they're trying to meet with their behavior and how they feel, and then share with them how we feel and what our needs are. Like if we could have a worldview like Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of Nonviolent Communication, has, which is that at our core, we're actually really good people and we all want to help each other. And we are not violent by nature. We are not greedy by nature. We are not all these things that our society tells us we are and that we have to work out of our children. If we could see that, then we could all return back to this kind person. And his biggest argument is, if you think about a time when you did something kind for somebody else, everybody smiles. That is like, we all want to make life better for others. And so if we can return to that mindset for us and for children and for everybody, I think it's just going to be so much more enjoyable to work with our children, to work with each other, and to grow. Okay, so without further ado, let's go to these slides. Okay, so this presentation was originally looking at myself and my husband through the lens of soul contract and human design. And so you can see here, I've added a soul contract here because this is when I realized that my birth name actually had a dash in it. And so that's how my birth name should have shown up with these numbers. I was using this as my birth name, which still applies because a lot of the time I didn't use the dash. And then this is my husband's birth name. And so what I see here is, it should say that we should have a hard time finding time together. And we do, but it's not as severe as you would think. And that's because truly at my core, I have a 4-4 and not an 8-8. So we're actually helping each other more than we're clashing. And then let's see what else here. So this 10-1 that I still carry, because like I said, I still use this name without a dash quite a bit, is really helping not just my husband with his spiritual karma, but we actually had 2 children that we named with a 10-1 in their spiritual karma. Both our daughters carry that. So these 3 are clashing in their spiritual karma. It's really hard for them. But I still carry this talent 10-1 that I can be the one to help them out of that. And that's the role I've been playing for years. And then you'll see here, I actually clash with myself in my 8-8 spiritual goal, which is why, even though I should be able to get out there and speak to mainstream about this work, I have struggled with that because I'm clashing with myself. When you have clashing 8s, it's really hard to be in the body. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry about all kinds of things. So it's been really hard. I've been fighting with myself a lot, but I think I'm starting to break through that. And then this 13-4, you can see when I optimized my name, I went back to the 13-4, and I didn't know that actually that's what I carried truly. And you'll also see later on that I took on more power in order to hold space for my son, and that like literally burned through me. And now I know why, because what I thought was my birth name carried some power numbers, this 9-9 and this 10-1, but my actual birth name has no power numbers. So I went from no power numbers to taking on a lot of power and taking on more power than most people in order to hold space for my son, because it's important that parents have more power than their kids. Not because we're supposed to have that power struggle, but because they feel safer if they feel like we can handle no matter what they throw at us. Okay, so that's the first one. And then here, let's see. So here, this is again my actual birth name. I put my husband's birth name, so that's even. And this was a common name that I was going by most of my life. And you can see here, not that it's relevant, but I had a lot of clashing numbers again with myself. So this is why it was essential that I changed my name. I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know where all my anxiety was coming from. But not only did I have those clashing 8s with the other name, but with my common name, I have clashing 4s, having trouble trusting, and clashing 2s here, which is like this emotional spring that's supposed to sort of allow us to feel like we have that, I can't remember what the word is, but in a car, suspension. So there's like the catching us, and then also the protection underneath that we can protect ourselves. So I was really being thrown off. Okay, and then here, this is my optimized name, and you can see I go back to the 13-4, and you'll see this come up later. So my husband and middle child struggle, and they've been struggling since we moved into our home, and I'll show you later. But my optimized name already started to push this button. So they both carry this 7-7 as a physical karma, my husband and our middle child. And then I took on an optimized name that started to poke that bear. And then we moved into a home that carries that 7-7 as a goal. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here. I just wanted to share how things change over time. And so this is my human design. And you can read here, and I have the slides available for you. This is my strengths according to my human design. So these are the channels that I carry, and this is like the definition of the channels. So yeah, like here, like I'm supposed to be a natural leader who leads people, supporting them in a democratic way. So I'm not supposed to be as confrontational as I have been. And then this is my husband's human design. And yeah, so here, this fully defined middle column, like I knew always that he's always known himself really well. And, he knew that he wanted to be a pilot, but he also wanted to do computer science, and he'd rather have the pilot as a hobby and all this stuff. Like he always knew where he was going in life, whereas I was kind of lost. So that's this column in the middle. But when COVID hit, it became really hard because I was seeing it from one aspect of being a mom with my kids and wanting to protect maintain our health and protect our health. And he was seeing it from the perspective of he's working, he's seeing people who are in fear in a different way than I am. And he has other concerns, like if we don't do certain things, then we have certain consequences and stuff like that. It was really hard on us because both of us have something to give, have intelligence, and it's hard to listen to the other when there's so much going on. So if I continue here, okay, so you saw my strengths, like I had 3, I think, and he's got more than that because he's got more channels. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 channels instead of 3. And so here, so it says he reviews what he knows again and again in his mind, because his mind is the top the crown is colored in and mine isn't, it puts a lot of pressure on me. His root is colored in and mine isn't, it puts a lot of pressure on me. He absorbs all these facts. He's looking at the lots of perspectives of things, whereas I'm more like an overall feel, whereas he's like he's highly opinionated about what should happen, urgency to speak his mind. Like this was a lot of pressure during COVID about what we should be doing and all that kind of stuff and what is true. There was so much information out there, and navigating all that together for our children. So here, well, I'll just speak to like where the projector is here to guide others, we need to be invited. He is a manifesting generator, which means he's here to do work that he loves. But if a projector is not invited and we offer our advice uninvited, then we feel bitter. And he has that bitterness in him too, where he needs to feel appreciated. So if people don't appreciate his efforts or sit on his coattails, he gets frustrated. So he really needed a lot of recognition for the information he was bringing to the table and also all the work that he does. And then going on with his skills. So this is not COVID related, but it is true that like I can't get any projects going unless I have his approval on stuff. So it's kind of frustrating because I'd like to get things going fast, but nothing frustrates him more than setting things in motion before he has all his resources assembled and his plans drawn up. He's an excellent planner and he hates being ill prepared. And we always joke, because he's not a handy person, that he has to take like 3 trips to Home Depot for every project or more. And it's kind of frustrating, but okay. And then he's definitely moody, which, I have an open emotional system, which I mentioned in the previous. So I feel his emotions amplified, and that's really hard because he's less aware of them. And then here, so that's what this speaks to here, where this is him up top. He has the colored in emotional system and mine is not colored in. So I sense his emotions tenfold. And I can also walk away and dump how I'm feeling, but he's like carrying it with him. And then on the spleen side, and this is what I got wrong in the previous video. So his spleen is my spleen is colored in, sorry, and his is not, which means that he has trouble letting things go. He may seem more sentimental. He may seem like a pack rat or whatever. Okay. So when you put our human designs together, what my daughter is singing in the background, hopefully you can still hear me, we have 8 centers colored in and 1 not, which means that we're meant to do stuff together. This is like the perfect relationship because you do stuff together and you go out the same door all the time, but that's actually not true. And you'll see this going forward in terms of the perfect relationship, because any relationship is perfect if you respect it for what it is. So the door that's open for us is the heart. This is one of the hardest doors to have open because you learn through your unworthiness. And so it's painful to learn through your unworthiness, but if you get to the other side, it's rewarding. And he has this kind of relationship with both his daughters. So we'll get to that when we get to that. And I think I show... No, I don't. Okay, so basically you can see that he has, as you knew before, he had more channels than I did. He has more strengths than I do. So we need to respect each other's strengths. So his channels are totally not the same as mine. And then we have 3 channels, which I'll show in the next slide, which are called attraction channels. Just one second. Okay, so we have 3 attraction channels or love-hate channels where we both provide half, and that I'll show you on the next slide. And then we have 1 compromise channel, which means that one of us has half and the other one has the whole portion, and we have to just treat this as dominant. So the person who has the whole wins, even though the person who has half feels like they can contribute half. They don't have the whole thing. So you just have to look at that, and I don't actually have that listed here. And then friendship channels means that we both share the same channel, and in this case we don't. And so I kind of made this joke in this presentation here that maybe we're twin flames because we have nothing in common. Okay. So the attraction channels here, it's where I have half and he has the other. So in this case, I carry the 57, he has the 34. And so we're really good in crises. And we actually did get through COVID pretty good. And other crises we've had with our children refusing school and whatever else. So Callan, my husband, naturally knows how to apply power carefully. And this is so beautiful because when we struggle with the school, it really just takes one email from my husband to straighten it out. Whereas I'm like always trying to figure it out and not really being listened to. And then here it's that I'm calm in the chaos and able to see far into the future. I build a solid foundation and it makes me fearless. So this is why like I'm often the one who is figuring out how to parent our children and how to do the school system and all this kind of stuff, because I see that vision for our kids. And then he comes in with the power applied carefully at times. So that helps us get through crisis. And then this one is about seeing what others miss. So basically, Callan lives in the moment and has a good sense of his network. And I would say that's true. He keeps all his friends and he's enjoying like life. And when we first got together, I like never carried any debt, never bought anything I couldn't afford. Whereas he carries debt and he enjoys life. And I've been able to kind of let go of that to kind of make a bigger future for ourselves. So we enjoy life now, and I don't worry so much now that I've gone through a lot of work on myself. And then preservation. So this is caring for the family. So I carry the 27, he carries the 50, which means that I can investigate how to care for others, which is me taking all these parenting courses and psychology courses and really working in the community and figuring out, you know, how things work and where the resources are. And then he has to be really careful because people have very high expectations on him, put a lot of responsibility on him, and it's up to him to say, actually, this is what I'm going to provide you with, and you know, you have to figure out the rest for yourself. And it is true that, for example, his family, even my family, comes to him a lot to help with stuff, and he's doing stuff for a lot of people, and eventually his plate is just way too full. So these things that, you know, I put together 6 years ago, and it was really helpful then, is still really helpful now. So it's information that is good to go back to as needed to understand why things are hard if they are hard. And then our life themes. I don't know if this is anything relevant. You know, I am here to be a leader who supports the people. I'm here to dream big and download from past leaders. I don't take things too seriously. Like, I am serious about let's work on our life lessons, but I'm also like in it for, wow, look at what life threw us and what does this mean? And I do need to set my boundaries for self-care. And then Callan's life theme, he needs to know why. That was a big thing during COVID, like, or even like navigating the education system. Like, he doesn't let me just make changes just to make changes because that's what I feel. He needs to really understand like why and what are we doing this for and all this kind of stuff. So it makes it hard because it slows me down, even though it looks like from a human design perspective he's faster than I am, and he definitely has more energy than I do, as I'm a no motors projector. I've got a lot of Aries in me, so I like to go really fast. We make a joke that when I'm cooking, the fire alarm's off because I'm cooking everything on high and burning it. So he does pace me and slow me down. He pays a lot of attention to detail. He sees quickly what's inaccurate and what changes are coming. So that was actually quite painful during COVID, because it's like, these are the things I want to do, and he will like cut you with a knife if it's wrong, like with the way he's thinking. And good in the end, but hard to go through. Okay, and so this is in the previous presentation I was talking about the Penta and how you can calculate it and color it in. And you can do that. So you get all your family's human design and you look at these bars here, and then you color it into here to see what do you have when you put everybody together and what's missing. But this software that I've now upgraded for myself, because I hadn't been using it for a while, I let my membership lapse, does it for you. So this is my family, and you can see that right here, nobody has 15, nobody has 46. So right here, these two lines are not completed. The top part is missing on each of them. So we don't have flow, which means we are not very good at timing, being on time. and we don't have discovery, which means we're not very good at. I have no idea why world and discovery comes together, but if I were to guess, this is about safety in public, and I'm guessing that we're all out, in the world, but like for some reason it's not connected that we're discovering the world in a safe way. So it is so frustrating, but our kids, they call it eloping, but they will literally run down the road, the other one runs across the street, and I'm just like, oh my God, trying to chase after my children all the time. It's very frustrating, but it is what it is. Okay. And then I was saying in the previous video that when you're missing 5:15, they say get a pet, because most pets eat on a schedule, walk on a schedule, so they carry that 5:15. Well, our pet is a reflector, which means she has no channels, so she didn't help us. 5:15, she doesn't even have any of them. So it didn't really help us to get a dog, although it really helps my husband to have a dog with his whole, everything that he's dealing with emotionally and stress-wise. Having a dog and someone who's easy to care for is nice for him. Well, it's kind of interesting. I think he might have some kind of struggle in here, but we'll have to look into that a little more later. But this is something in the new software that we can look at. And then going back to my daughter, who is also a reflector, and what struck me last night is in the past 2 nights in her sleep, she's been kicking a lot. And so I was wondering, wow, like what is she processing? And then having read so much about trauma and how trauma gets stored in procedural memory if we're not able to defend ourselves. And so people who are making this fighting motion, maybe trying to complete that trauma, I want to kick you away. So just 1 second again. Okay, so I think I was talking about whether she was trying to work through trauma she wasn't able to fully work out, because she has had some stressful days, and maybe that's what's happening at night. But then I was getting to think, well, because she's a reflector, she's totally empty. And so you can look at the transits of the planets in the sky every day and add that to her body and see how are the placements of the planets impacting her. So for example, today she is a generator, or operating as a generator, because of the placements of the planets. She gets her sacral colored in. And so this is something I could look to each day when we're struggling to try to understand, okay, well, how is she today? And then when I look at, okay, we actually have a different human design when we're sleeping. This is something I don't fully understand yet, but I will look into if I'm interested or if other people are interested. But when she sleeps, she's not a reflector anymore. She actually becomes a generator again, and she has that rhythm channel. So that's something worth exploring. And then I was thinking, okay, so why is she so comfortable with me? And this goes back to when I said before, the 8 and 1 have some fun is like the ideal relationship, but actually it's not. The ideal relationship is actually understanding what your relationship is and respecting that. So here we are, this is her and this is me. When we're put together, we are 6 and 3, better to be free. And at first I thought, okay, this is a child who doesn't want to be with me. My previous 2 children were 8 and 1, have some fun. And my son, we explored through the head. It was wonderful. And then my daughter, we had to learn through that, through the heart, like you saw earlier. And that was challenging, to do a lot of work on myself. And then here I have this better to be free. But actually, it's a really beautiful relationship now that I've embraced it, because yeah, she's around having her freedom, but she still enjoys being with me. And I think being a reflector, she doesn't want to have so much pressure on her. So I pressure her mind, her throat, her identity, and her spleen, her instincts. And actually I found that people who have an open identity do enjoy being around someone who can pace them in a healthy way, like my son has an open identity. So I think she's very comfortable that I'm only pushing on 4 of her centers, and then together we gain 2 more centers. So it feels more even. But when we start to look at her with other people, so this is her and her sister, and they fight a lot. People say they have a love-hate relationship. And you can see her older sister puts pressure on 7 centers, not just 3. I think I said I was putting pressure on 4. So she's putting pressure on 7. And then when they're together, they are 9 and nowhere to go, and a triple split. So this is very interesting because nobody can get in edgewise when they're together. There's no room for any growth. There's no room for anybody else. And a triple split doesn't like to be locked in. So her sister alone is a triple split. She doesn't like to be locked in like this. I'm pretty sure a reflector doesn't like to be locked in, and they're a triple split, so they even more desire to be separated. So this could explain some of why their relationship is challenging, but that doesn't mean we can't navigate it. And my son and husband are also that 9 and nowhere to go. And they do have a very close relationship. And you can't get in when they're watching their Mandalorian, or they used to do battles and stuff like that. But you learn to manage it. So this is my daughter. And I think this might be her grandma. Anyways, I think this is a grandparent, and there's some struggle here. Yeah, so it's 7 and 2 work to do. So where there's freedom with me, this work to do, like the grandma has not put in the time to do the work to create that great relationship. So that's why this relationship struggles. And then this is a grandfather, and here we see the 8 and 1 have some fun with the heart open, but my dad is not used to having to learn through the heart. And so that makes the relationship challenging. Whereas my husband and I have learned how to do that together. We've learned with our other children, and now another child. So and then my dad is also a split large. So split large means there's these together, and there's a big break before you see another group of centers that are colored in, which means they tend to blame others. So, my dad alone just struggles. And so sometimes they can have a great time, but they have to get over that hurdle. And actually this morning they did get over that hurdle, and they did have a great time. So it's interesting to see how every relationship is going to be very different with a reflector, which is something new for us. As a reflector is only 0.4% of the population, so you don't come across them too often. And before having my child and actually knowing her for these past almost 4 years, the main thing I thought about reflectors was like, if you like yourself, you'll like the reflector. And that had been true for me, but there's more to it than that. And if you don't like yourself, you don't, because they're reflecting you back at you. And if you don't like yourself, you don't really like somebody who's reflecting you at you. And then here is my husband and our daughter. So again, the heart is opened. 8 and 1 have some fun. And he's got a great relationship with her. And he had a great relationship with his middle child too, until recently, which I alluded to in the last video. And I'll show you again here. So this is, so here you see, this is the reflector. So this is younger daughter. And then we switch to the older daughter. And it's still 8 and 1 have some fun with the open heart, but it's a much more challenging relationship. Let's see. Here, like my husband dominates because she's got no channels. And here, the middle child is giving my husband a run for his money with all these channels. So she wants to be seen more as an equal. And then if we look here at... this is my, let's see, this is my daughter. So her birth name and her common name, and this is my husband's birth name and common name. So they have this one thing in common, this 12-3, like just busy everywhere, really trying to learn a lot in this lifetime. But they have that clashing 7-7, and they have this clashing 10-1 in their karmas. That's really hard. And then we just moved into this home which has a success of 7-7. So like I said before, where I was pushing on their 7-7 and where I was holding space for their 10-1, now the home is also pushing on their 7-7. So they really need to get into this, accepting all of who they are, showing all of who they are, and then they can draw to them what is needed. And they are drawing to them what is needed, which is to work through their conflict. And then I think I have a couple more slides here. So that's the home. And then, yeah, this is what I was sharing before, is that this is my daughter, this is my husband's common name, so they're clashing 7-7s. And then here is this here is the youngest. So here they all have this 10-1. I think my husband's 10-1 must be in his birth name, and then the third daughter has this 10-1. So I'm holding space with my talent, spiritual talent 10 ones, for the 3 of them to have these 10 ones in their karma. And I also in my optimized name, I have 9s in the talent, so that blasts through everything. Sometimes it's a little harsh, but that will do the trick. And then, as I mentioned in the article, like, it wasn't just, oh, we looked at our human design and soul contract and things got better. Like, seeing Master Yan made a huge difference. Like it says, clearing attachments, restoring balanced energy so you can do your life plan or your life lessons. Because when you have the energy, you can work through the challenging times. And that's why it's so important, if you are able or if you're interested, to see someone who can restore your energy. And then you have your energy, and then you do work with someone like me who points you in the right directions of what your actual lessons are, so you don't waste your energy on the wrong things. And then you can actually move forward in life. And then this is what I was alluding to in the article, how there's so many books trying to help kids do these things that they can't do, instead of actually going, well, why can't they do these things? What's going on? Let's treat the trauma first. Let's stop forcing these kids to go to school and speak up and do these things. Like, it's not the job of teachers to educate children. It sounds weird, but it's not. And it's not the job of parents to make sure their children are like disciplined and have manners and all this kind of stuff. Like, we are here to understand what they need and to help them understand what we need and how we impact each other. And when they're feeling well, they will learn naturally, and we will learn from them, and we will all grow. So this is where I'm showing this contrast between, you can say, oh, this child is not able to do this, and this is how you make them. Or you can start to look at why and how can we support that. And that's why I really love, so this actually goes back to that Whole Brain Child book, which is great, talking about the brain is developing. We want to integrate top and bottom brain. We want to integrate left and right, but it still goes back to, don't forget to teach them consequences and manners and stuff like that. And there are books that say, like, Punished by Rewards and The Unconditional Parent. And we followed those strategies with my son, and then he never apologized because we never made him apologize. And it's embarrassing when your child doesn't apologize. And so then with our younger kids, we did teach a little bit of that, just to kind of make it more comfortable for us. So that's where I say there's consequences to our choices, and we have to live with them. And you will find your middle ground. You don't have to be all the way one theory or all the way another, but be open to, is that really our job, to make children admit they're wrong and apologize and all this stuff? And actually, according to nonviolent communication, forcing someone to apologize is actually very violent, because you're forcing them to say they were wrong, and they weren't wrong. They were just trying to get their needs met. Okay. Yeah, you want to go back to Mexico? Just like my daughter has needs for me right now. So I'm going to wrap up. I'm just going to show here. This is from Nonviolent Communication. We all have the same needs. These are our needs. If you're thinking about a need other than that, it's not a need. It's a strategy to meet one of these needs. And we all have feelings that positive feelings when our needs are being met, and negative feelings when our needs are not being met. And the more we can understand the language of feelings and needs, and go back to that, and to know that what everybody is doing is the best they know how to meet their needs, then we can start to use that beautiful neuroscience and go, okay, how do we help this brain area and help that brain area? And how do we help them integrate their brain and use parts of their brain that allow them to make better decisions, and so on. And so the strategies they use to meet their needs also meet our needs. Okay, I hope that's helpful.